Om Ajnanatimrandasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmritamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamakyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Gurum Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavan Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikesha Indriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane Swarga Pavargadvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namah Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. Hare Krishna. So, thank you very much. So, we are continuing with our discussion on the removal of obstacles on the path of being able to engage in pure devotional service and being able to chant the pure names. So, the purpose of the Krishna conscious movement is, as it is defined, it's Krishna consciousness, to become fully conscious of the Lord. What does it mean in layman terms? In layman terms, the purpose of any religion, any bona fide religion, which is consistent with the practitioner, which is consistent with the acharya or the teacher or the preceptor, and then it is consistent with the writing or the book, be it Christianity or Judaism or whatever the case may be. The hallmark of any religion and the potency of any religion is its ability to be able to take a practitioner and be able to give a practitioner the opportunity for them to be able to recognize who they are in relationship to God and to recognize that specific relationship and also to be able to understand how to act in that relationship and finally to be able to surrender themselves. This is the fundamental basis of any religion. If a religion is not consistent with this goal, then that religion is not considered to be bona fide. It's very simple. Any religion you pick up, the essence of the religion has to sum up to this particular statement that we are practicing a certain scriptural truth for the purpose of understanding who we are, self-realization, for the purpose of understanding who is God, and then for the purpose of understanding the relationship between us and God, and then to be able to act in that relationship. You see, we are not so much neutral. We just cannot be inert. We are not inert people because we are very conscious. We have senses that are quite active. So there's a necessity for us to be able to engage our senses in the service of God. We are not inert. In that particular, focus, the whole purpose of religion is for us to understand that particular essence. So Krishna consciousness is about understanding Krishna in a similar manner, where we understand who we are, because someone who is in amnesia has no ability to recognize others, what to say of themselves. So first, there's a need to recognize who we are. You see, this is fundamental. Someone who is in amnesia, they don't remember who their fathers, mothers, they don't even remember their address. They don't know who their the relatives are. They're in amnesia. It's a diseased state. It's not normal. It's a diseased state. So such a person who cannot even understand who they are is not expected to understand who is Krishna. They cannot. So Krishna consciousness is all about being able to understand who we are first. And as we understand and unfold who we are, right? The Lord describes this in the Sikshashtakam. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. What is the meaning of Chetaha? Chetaha is the mirror, which is Chitta, the consciousness. The mirror of the heart. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. That particular mirror of the heart has to be cleansed so that we are able to look at that mirror and we are able to see who we are. And the day we are able to see who we are, then we would be able to see Vrindavan, the eternal abode of Krishna. Then we would be able to see Krishna himself, and we are able to interact in the specific relationship that we have with him. Now the amnesia is gone. So the whole process of sadhana, bhakti, and Krishna consciousness is to go from a state of amnesia, complete amnesia, to a state of complete consciousness. That is Krishna consciousness. In that particular goal, after defining such a goal, we also proceed towards practicing certain types of austerities, certain types of practices which would allow us to be able to move forward. And austerity and sacrifice is not alien to any of us. If you have been going and if you have qualified yourself as a professional, if you have qualified yourself as anybody in any kind of professional capacity, you have paid the price to do so. To hold on to a job, we pay a price. So what makes us think that this eternal objective of being able to know who we are and for the ability to know who is Krishna, there wouldn't be a price to pay? What makes us think that it is so cheap that it's going to come like that? It's not going to work, right? There is a price to pay for it. Now the price is valuable because someone who understands what the goal is, they also understand that there's a certain price to pay. If you want to go to Harvard, you want to graduate and you want to go to Harvard, you better understand that Harvard, going to Harvard, graduating from Harvard has its benefits. There are perks. In the professional world, you start off pretty well, right? But then to get into Harvard, there's a certain price to pay. And then being in Harvard and functioning at that level, there's a certain price to pay as well. So the question is, we need to be able to say, pay a certain price at every stage. So why is it inconsistent when we make this particular demand, when we come into spiritual life, that it should be smooth? Or there is this fallacy, which is a very Indian fallacy, I would say, to think that I would practice spirituality when my body does not have the capacity to do so. In other words, when I become old and when I can't even go to the toilet, properly, that is the time I will take up the arduous nature of, wanting to know who I am. When you struggle with your own body, how are you supposed to have the sensual strength, the power for you to be able to understand, and go further in being able to practice Krishna consciousness? This is a very typical present day Indian mood where we want to strive and we want to move forward, but then we will leave this behind. There's a time for it, so we make some predictions that way. Anyway, the point we wanted to make is understand the goal. Once we understand the goal, and the goal is being further defined in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to be able to summarize what we did in the past 3 weeks. I want to take perhaps a few minutes to summarize what we accomplished in each week, because there was a certain form and there was a certain structure to what we spoke. Because I had decided what I was going to convey, and I knew what I was going to speak about 4 weeks hence. So there were parts to it. So I'm just going to summarize, and it will also help newcomers in certain ways. The first week, we identified the problem. If you're on the path of spirituality, there is a specific requirement, and the requirement was defined by 4.24 in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 24th verse. It is Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. What is the first statement? A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities. Full contribution, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. What does it mean? Fully absorbed. Now, in a 24-hour period, how many of us can claim that we are fully absorbed? Krishna says this again, okay? He's not being inconsistent. Okay, he's trying to say this again in the 18th chapter. He says this in the 9th and again in the 18th chapter. He makes the statement. He uses different words, but it conveys the same meaning. Okay, I'm going to read that now. I just want to make sure that we're all talking the same thing in that sense. Krishna says this again in the 18th chapter as well. The last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So he starts a conversation, he ends it as well. He says this in the 4th chapter, 4.24, that complete absorption is required, Whatever you do, you got to offer it to me. Whatever you have to do, you have to ensure that the objective is me, the sacrifice is going to be me, the ingredients are also spiritual. Someone who is able to do all of that is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom. We want to attain the spiritual kingdom. That is Krishna consciousness. It doesn't mean that we're going to die. This is not about dying, going back to the heaven or beyond and experiencing something so wonderful that cannot be experienced here. This is about reaching this state while being in one of these bodies. Please understand the distinction of what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness. This is not about leaving the body. This is not about leaving the body, making the final transition, going back, and then experiencing a higher state once we leave the body. This is about having that state and becoming absorbed while being in this body. No one who works in a professional organization will ever get promoted to a higher level unless they start acting in that capacity while they are in a lower level. How many of you have been promoted from, perhaps, in the software team, you're being promoted to project manager. You already have to manage a project to some level for you to get promoted. You see? That's exactly. In the spiritual circles, how do we get initiated? You already have to have that absorption and be able to chant 16 rounds, be very consistent over a certain period of time before being, given initiation so that you could continue. The point which I'm trying to make here is the milestone has to be achieved before you get there. That qualifies one to reach there. You see, it's a very simple observation. You need a visa to come to America. You need a plane ticket. You need to be fully qualified. Whatever it is you had to do to get here, you needed all of that before, not after. You see, in a similar state, the qualification for going to the spiritual sky has to happen in this lifetime, and we have to live that kind of life as it is found in the spiritual sky while being in this body. Understand the distinction. The distinction is not so much that things can be done beyond and the body is still going to remain a constraint. The idea is to reach a state of consciousness where we're able to practice what we would do in complete absorption as we would do in Goloka, in Vrindavan, in the eternal realm, whilst being here in Edison, New Jersey. You see, that is the process. Now, what does Krishna say again in, 18.65? He says, the same thing is being repeated. Manmanabha madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame mashyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. The translation is, again, he says in the 4.24, what did he say? Someone who is completely absorbed in me. And the translation to this verse, always think of me, which is the same thing. Become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. Again, he is repeating the same message. He's consistent. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Now he is introducing a different concept. He is introducing a concept of sambandha. Now he's saying that I'm saying this because you're my friend. Now you already are a relative of mine. You're already a sambandha. There's sambandha here. As a consequence, I'm making this promise. Now, what do we want to understand from these two verses? There has to be absorption. But we lead lifestyles which does not allow us to become absorbed. You see, when we go to work, we take on titles at work. And the atmosphere at work, that was the first discussion that we had in the first week. The atmosphere at work is challenging. Why is it challenging? For a devotee, for a spiritual aspirant, is because they have to turn their entire consciousness 180 degrees to be in that environment. That environment is an environment which has been created with the precept and the foundation of a lack of faith in scriptures. That is education these days. Don't kid yourself, because this is exactly how. 300 years back, we spoke about this the first time, 4 weeks back. 300 years back, there were philosophical arrangements made specifically in the West. And philosophies were adopted in the West, which practically would make one an atheist at different levels, which practically make one an atheist. Now, the same philosophies are the success formula, which was propagated, and it is being propagated throughout the world in every school, practically because there is a curriculum. And we spoke about this the first time in 4 weeks back. Now, the point we want to make here is that when you have a foundation which is built on selfishness, when you have a foundation which is built primarily on the idea that we would be able to pursue our goals of sense gratification. And when we selfishly pursue our goals of sense gratification, somehow or the other, we will succeed and everybody else will also benefit from it. See, this is the philosophy that goes on. This is American philosophy. And then it really fell down and fell apart in 2008. They realized it. Many schools, business schools, many schools around the world, modern business schools, they all were questioning the fundamental precept of how to motivate others to achieve things. Because things fell apart when people became extraordinarily selfish, and it really fell apart. Now, the issue which we are trying to bring about here is when we go to work, we are plugging into an environment which is not conducive for selflessness. It is conducive for the opposite, which is selfishness. You plug into that environment, you expose yourself in certain ways, and then you come back again in the evening and you begin afresh, or you start in the morning and then you turn around 180 degrees. This is normal for every one of us, practically. We go and then we turn 180 degrees every day. What is the real challenge? The real challenge is, number one, you cannot be fully absorbed. Number two, even if you practice Krishna consciousness in this environment for many years, the amount that you would derive and be able to grab, because you're only being able to achieve a certain amount of critical mass of consciousness every day, is very less. Because every day you put in a certain amount of effort, and it's like an elephant having its bath. You go out and then you take mud and then you throw it on yourself. You come back in the evening, have a bath, again next day in the morning. So this is a cycle. And over many years, we become sensitized to the environment more than what we perform here. So this is a challenge. Now, what is a specific challenge? The environment that we are in outside, it does not give us stimulus to remember Krishna. It does not give us stimulus for us to be able to develop proper aspiration of the future. Because once you're in an environment, that environment will dictate your desires. It's a fact. If you are in an environment, the environment will dictate desires. You will desire, for example, that if there is some amount of anxiety about who is going to be sitting where, you'll start desiring a certain kind of arrangement at work. You will start desiring a larger team if you're managing someone. Or if you're not managing, you will start desiring a larger team. You will start desiring what others would want you to desire. In other words, we start plugging into the environment, we start making up desires. Now, what we do not know as practitioners of Krishna consciousness is whether those desires in themselves are really conducive for us to ultimately reach the point of complete absorption. Okay? If you're facing challenges today after receiving so many instructions on the topic, if devotees are facing challenges today at work and at home in terms of being able to cultivate Krishna consciousness, it is primarily because we have arranged for it. This was the message that I gave you in the first week. Our present circumstances have been arranged by us. We have very carefully arranged for our present circumstances. There are some good sides to it, and there are some challenges. This has been arranged by us because we desired so many things in the past. And because we desired, we acted upon those desires. And then somehow or the other, there was piety. You have all heard of currency, which is in the bank. Everybody hears that. Piety is the currency for which, you need piety for you to be able to make things happen in the world. Before you have greenbacks, green dollars in the bank, you have to have subtle dollars accumulated. Those subtle dollars, when they combine with your desires, they become green dollars. There's a big difference. That is the reason why those days, if you notice practically in the scripture, even great kings used to go to the forest and sit in tapasya to accumulate power. Why sit in tapasya? Because they were accumulating subtle wealth. And that subtle wealth is convertible currency. It is. That is how they used to use this convertible currency, and then they used to ask for desires they used to be able to manifest. That is why some people can manifest whatever they want in their heart. Some people find it challenging to manifest things. Why? Because some people have subtle currency to spend and others do not. So our objective is not so much to accumulate subtle currency. That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to say that we have done so many things in the past, over several lifetimes and in this lifetime, and the aggregate of all our actions of the past is today. Does everybody agree that the actions that you took 5 years back, 10 years back, 20 years back is the reason why we are here today in certain ways? There are some good things that we did, obviously. Otherwise, we would not be in touch with Mahaprabhu's movement. There are good things we have done. But there have also been certain things that we have desired which are not so conducive, and that's the reason why we are struggling. Right? Even after receiving such potent information, we are struggling. So our struggle is because we desired it. This was the first week. And the stimulus for our desires comes from an environment which is not designed for promoting Krishna consciousness, which is wherever we have to do. And I'm not against work because that is necessity these days. You have to have money so that you don't worry about it. So we are not arguing about that. We are not arguing about the fact that we all have to go to work. No, we are not presenting any alternatives. I'm merely saying that identify the problem. The problem lies in the fact that you are exposing yourself to an environment on a daily basis which is not stimulating you conducively. Remember that. Now, how do you handle it? We shared a few things. Number one, we shared the fact that understand that your motive for work has to align itself in being able to further your Krishna conscious goals. You have to have a goal written down. You have to have a goal saying, okay, Krishna consciousness is what makes me happy. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I need a home of this kind, whatever kind you have in mind, big, small, who cares, anyways, right? Whatever suits you. Some people like small, some people like big. There's nothing wrong with aspiring for different kinds of homes or whatever, different kinds of vehicles, whatever you need to be comfortable and to exist in the here in the world, to be able to take care of your responsibilities, and so that you don't have to worry so much about that. And that would allow you enough time so that you could engage your energies in being able to serve and chant and absorb yourself fully. That should be a written goal. That written goal you should reflect on every day when you wake up. Please reflect on it every day when you wake up, because that's going to become very important. It's going to become very important. The reason I'm saying that is because if you do not know why you're going to work and for what purpose, you will start becoming stimulated by the environment. You will start desiring things in the workplace that may essentially not be conducive to our final goal of Krishna consciousness. It may not be. But if you already know why you're going to work and you've written it down, you reflect on it in the morning when you wake up, stick it on the bathroom mirror when you brush your teeth. First thing, nothing wrong with it. Stick it. Doesn't matter if you're going to write that I need $1 million. Nothing wrong. But think about it, whether it's going to be useful for Krishna consciousness, in what way. Think about it. Have some link to why you're going to work with Krishna consciousness. Be very clear about it. Because once you get to work, you will become stimulated by the environment. You will start desiring things which may or may not help with Krishna consciousness. So first precept, write down why you're going to work. This is not an ordinary situation. I'm not trying to give you, I'm not trying to sell snake oil, as they would say, to cure things. I'm not trying to sell you anything which will not work. This is very clear. Because the moment you start writing down after reflection on Srila Prabhupada, after praying to the Gurus, saying what exactly do you need, and you start reflecting on it on a daily basis, you will see that the future that you're desiring is getting structured with Krishna in the center. And as it gets structured with Krishna in the center, and you're also chanting and you're engaging in very powerful service and so on and so forth, whatever manifests will become conducive to the idea of Krishna consciousness. Do you understand? Because we have a tendency to aspire for things which have no connection to Krishna. We do. We get stimulated by the environment. And it's a fact. Let's wake up to that and write down what is important and then start aspiring for it. Whatever is important. And there's no consideration, because each and every one of you is individual. You have your own aspirations, you have your lifestyle. I'm not going to go into that. I'm merely saying, put it down, keep Krishna in the center. That's the first lesson. Now comes an internal practice. This is something which we spoke of in the next week. The internal practice is required because internal practice is a specific mantra of Lord Aniruddha. The Aniruddha mantra is very special because Lord Aniruddha is compared to the sun. What is so special about Lord Surya? What is so special about Lord Surya?
Brilliant.
He's brilliant, yes. What else?
Dispeller of darkness.
I guess, yeah, it's synonymous in one sense. What else?
He touches both dirty and non-dirty people.
Exactly. Because he is completely indifferent. Where he does not get affected when he comes in touch with something which is impure or when he comes in touch with something pure. His light can shine on something which is very pure. He can shine on, let's say, for example, he can shine on a deity of Krishna. The same light can also shine on something which is very abominable. He doesn't get affected by it. He's in touch, but he's not getting affected. This is the quality of Paramahamsa. Lord Aniruddha is specifically being offered obeisances. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikesha Indriyatmane. He is the principle of the mind, the eternal mind. He is the principle of Krishna, the supreme mind, the mental principle. It is with your mind that you hold back your senses. You see, he is the supreme controller of senses. So we are praying to him saying, give me the power so that I can be in an environment without getting affected and polluted by the environment. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikesha Indriyatmane Nama Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivrittatmane. Namaha Paramahamsaya. Paramahamsa. What is the meaning of Paramahamsa? The Hamsa, the swan, has the ability to extract milk from water. You see, it can extract, if you mix milk and water, the swan has the ability to extract milk from water. So it's a Paramahamsa. So Suryadev is also in that sense compared. Lord Aniruddha is an expansion, or rather Surya is an expansion of Lord Aniruddha. So as a consequence, it is being said that you offer prayers to him so that he gets into our heart. He dispels the darkness with his brilliance. He dispels the darkness which is within. He also gives us the ability to become aloof from the impulses and whatever environment and the stimulus that we obtain from the environment. The process of anartha nivirti is facilitated by coming in touch with Lord Aniruddha. Okay, it's a very, very powerful verse. There are people who took up this verse 2 weeks back. There are devotees who are hearing me. They wrote me, they took up the verse 2 weeks back. They're already giving me feedback that everything has improved. The chanting has improved, their absorption has improved. They're writing to me. And these are very sincere, feedback. I didn't ask for it. They wrote on their own saying they are feeling extraordinarily helped when they chant, when they're able to do everything, when they chant these verses. Because what happens when you chant these verses, the Lord enters into the heart as Lord Aniruddha. He allows us to be completely aloof from the environment. So the moment you sit, and I do it this way, I shared this in the second week. I chant for half an hour before I begin my japa. For half an hour, I chant these two verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4.24, 4.2436, 4.2437. I chant these two verses for a full half hour before beginning my session of japa. And that helps me complete absorption in japa because it allows me to completely remove the negative influences of time. Okay? So that's very important for you to understand. This was the second week. We gave you two things. Number one, there has to be a plan, a strategy, saying I want something. And that wanting something has to be connected to Krishna. Number two, there has to be an internal process. That is the Aniruddha mantra. The third week, we spoke of Lord Narasimha's mantra. What was so special about Lord Narasimha's mantra? Why do we offer prayers to Lord Narasimha on a daily basis in Krishna consciousness? He is non-different from Radha Krishna, but then he has a very specific focus. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Narasimhadev appears, and he kills Hiranyakashipu, he sits on the throne of Hiranyakashipu, giving us a message saying, I have the ability, and I will come, and I will even change the environment for you. Because the environment that we are in is being managed by the king. It is the government, which is the king, which is actually managing. So Lord Narasimha is saying, even if something is so insurmountable, I will have the ability to change and make changes to that. Does it make sense? He's saying that even if it is insurmountable, I would come and I would make changes. I would manifest changes for you. Lord Narasimhadev is very special in our practice. He is very special in removing obstacles. Vigna Vinashana Narasimhadev. Why do we pray to him to remove obstacles? We specifically pray to Lord Narasimhadev to remove obstacles because he says that my role is to come and change the time factor. You see, a farmer, let's understand the time factor, Kala. Let's understand it. A farmer, he might choose the best of seeds. He will choose the best of seeds. He will also pick a day from the farmer's almanac, whatever. Even in this country, they use the farmer's almanac. We call it the Panchang in India, right? So the farmer's almanac, he would pick it up. He would choose the exact day for him to be able to sow the seed. So he would say that I'm going to sow the seed because in that particular season, if I sow the seed on this particular day, it's going to be very conducive for me. So the farmer would choose that particular day. And then he would also sow the seed, because that's very much within his capacity to do so. He can choose the right seed, and he can also sow the right seed at this right time. Everything is fine. But then rain has to come. The condition for the seed to fructify into a sapling, into a tree, and into becoming a good fruitful crop, rain has to come in 5 days. That might be a constraint. Now, who is controlling rain? That rain might come 5 days before he has planned. So he might fix a date saying, I'm going to do it on the 30th of April, for example. The rain might come on the 20th of April and go away. And there goes his whole plan for the year. That is the time factor. Or the rain may come 15 days after he has sowed the seed, where it may not be adequate to give nourishment to the crop. So who is controlling this rain? What is that particular factor which is completely out of our control? What is it? Time. That is the time factor. That is kala. That is beyond our control, where we are entitled to our effort, but the results themselves are being changed by the time factor. Please understand that. Lord Narasimhadev, he is making this promise saying, if I have to come and influence the time factor, I will influence the time factor. What does the time factor do in the life of a devotee? What does it do in general? What does the time factor do? Anybody? What is the time factor known for? You can ask any model. What is the time factor? You can ask any actress or actor.
Age.
Yes. Decay. With time, everything changes, right? We don't want to talk about models and, actresses, because, in that industry, people somehow become younger as they go age. So that's a different industry altogether. But I'm talking about in general, as we grow older, we're supposed to age, right? We're supposed to age and dwindle and pass away. That is a time factor. Lord Narasimhadev is saying, if time himself comes, Kala comes to take away your life, or to give you disturbance which is life-threatening, or to create a circumstance which is not going to allow you to be able to engage in my service, I will come and I will even change that. He is eternal time. He is the controller of time. He is, it's one of his features. The Lord says that. And that's why he manifests himself when he goes and sits in the throne, saying, if Hiranyakashipu comes, who is so powerful, a demon, and that was not an ordinary demon, he had the ability to control everybody and to receive everything. He became like a conduit for everything. And he was not an ordinary person. And even if he comes, I have the ability to come and make changes so that you can chant. That is Narasimhadev. This is eternal time. He can change eternal time. He can manifest eternal time. Okay, so that was shared in the previous week. The specific mantra that was shared was the 5th canto, 18th chapter, 8th verse. This is a very powerful mantra of Lord Narasimhadev. It's very powerful. Please memorize it. 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse 8. Right? Please chant that mantra. It will be very helpful. You can do the Narasimha Pranam, which Srila Prabhupada has offered us. It is equally potent. That is what Srila Prabhupada has offered us as a practice as well. Okay? So this was shared in the 3rd week. So we spoke internal challenges. We also addressed the external challenges in terms of how to manifest bhakti, what to do, and how to move forward in becoming fully absorbed. Now, in today, I want to reflect and I want to focus completely on what is the message which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us for us to be able to remove obstacles. It's a very, very poignant, very important message. The message he gave us was in the form of a verse. That verse is the process of being able to chant the holy names. The specific verse Sri Mahaprabhu gave us was Trinadapi Sunichena Taroreva Sahishnuna Mani Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. Trinadapi Sunichena Taroreva Sahishnuna Amani Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. Trinadapi Sunichena. Right? What does it mean? What is Trinadapi Sunichena? Does it really matter to us if somebody takes away something of ours, or does not respect us in certain ways, or treats us in a certain way? Will it matter to us? Be very honest. How many of you feel it matters to you? Show up your hands. Yeah, everybody, it matters. It depends on degrees. It matters. You see, nobody wants to be ill-treated. Nobody really feels that they should be disturbed in any manner. They feel that they should be given their place, and so on and so forth. Now, what is the meaning of Trinadapi Sunichena? Where Mahaprabhu is saying, if you become as flexible, Trina. Trina is grass, straw. Straw. What happens when you have straw strewn on the street? We step on it. What does it do? It doesn't protest. It just allows you to step on it, it keeps going. Right? You have grass, it bends down, it becomes very flexible. So Mahaprabhu is saying, Trinadapi sunichena, taro riva sahishnuna. Taro riva sahishnuna means become tolerant as a tree. Amani manadena. If you are Trinadapi sunichena, which is you're able to bend down and become flexible as a blade of grass or straw, or if you're as tolerant as a tree, then pridelessness is your you have that already. Because number one, for someone who really cares about how others treat him or treat her, such a person, if they are really getting affected, that particular person, they're getting affected, meaning I'm not saying they would not get disturbed. Everybody gets disturbed if people are obnoxious to some extent. But if they're getting affected to the point where they stop chanting, they get affected to the point where they can't do anything, they become completely transfixed and start thinking that this is what it is, and they start labeling the whole process as being problematic, then that problem is theirs as well, as much as it is the problem with the person who is giving trouble. It's both ways. So if someone has completely identified himself or herself with an identity of the spiritual world, then such a person, will they ever care about what happens here? How many of you worry so much about whether the train compartment was so clean, less clean, moderately clean, when you have to get up in a few hours and get out in the morning? How many of us think that way? Do you worry? You don't. How many of us worry? You know that 9 o'clock in the night, I remember in Mayapur, in Calcutta, we got in at 9 o'clock in the night. At 6 o'clock in the morning, we knew we were going to reach Jagannath Puri. Who cares about what the compartment is all about? You're tired, you doze off, you wake up with all your baggage, and then there you are in Jagannath Puri. Who cares about how the compartment is? Right. Because we know where we are going. We know there's our beloved who is waiting there to receive us. So we are all the more eager for us to be able to go. So that's our journey. So for someone who has completely identified with the spiritual sky, who knows who they are in the spiritual sky, in relationship to Krishna, the more and more they know who they are in relation to Krishna, less worried they would be about position, about status, about anything in this world. Less worried they would be. So will there be a problem in such a person being Trinadapi Sunichena? Will there be a problem in such a person experiencing being flexible as a blade of grass? What do you think? Because they don't even care. They don't even identify with the environment. They don't care about anything because they already know where they're going. They know it's a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before they're going to reach there. Why would they care about what is happening in the temporary transitionary period? It's like being in a transit lounge. As inconvenient as it may seem, it's like being in a transit lounge. The time comes, you're going to get into your flight, you're going to go. Why would you be worried? You would not be. That is the message of the first line, Trinadapi Sunichena. This idea of being as flexible as a blade of grass comes when you have absolutely nothing to do with this world other than wanting to use the circumstances of this world to serve the Lord. If there are other agendas, there will be problems. Because if there are other agendas, the grass is not so flexible. You see, something which is not so flexible, if you bend it, what is going to happen? It's going to break. There is going to be a problem. So Mahaprabhu is very clear. The first line is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasaishnuna. For that quality to come, one has to completely identify with the spiritual sky. If that happens, then automatically he becomes Amani. Mana is to have pride. I am this, I am that. Srila Prabhupada, when certain PhDs used to come to a temple, Srila Prabhupada, the first thing that he used to tell the PhD personality, he used to tell him, go into the kitchen, wash pots. Because everybody used to think, the person is a PhD, he's very qualified, he can be given sophisticated service, he could be given service of this kind, that kind. Prabhupada used to say, go into the kitchen, wash pots. Why would he do that? And Prabhupada was not so much about insulting. No. This is not to break down the person. No. This was to ensure that the moment that person starts washing pots, he will give up his identity of being a PhD and being such and such, because automatically he's washing pots there. You see, that becomes reinforced. So this humble service of menial service really helps in cultivating deeper Krishna consciousness because of the fact that you are able to give up your identity. The identity that is problematic. So that is the first precept. Now the second part to it is amani. Amani means pridelessness. There's no pride whatsoever. So Mahaprabhu gave this instruction saying, if you can do these two, then Kirtaniya Sadahari is not an issue. What is Kirtaniya Sadahari? Krishna says this. Manmanabo Madbhakto Madhyaji Namaskuru. What is Krishna saying? Always think of me. Remember me. Become my devotee. Worship me always. Isn't this the same as Kirtaniya Sadahari? Yeah. So Krishna is saying the same thing in the 18th chapter in the concluding verse. This is considered to be very confidential concluding verse. Sri Mahaprabhu gave the same message. To reinforce this message, Mahaprabhu had a daily habit. We need examples. We need examples. Mahaprabhu had a daily habit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used to request Sri Gadadhar Pandit, his very confidential associate. Every day he used to request, every day in Jagannath Puri, every day during the daytime when the sun was up, he used to request Gadadhar Pandit saying, please sit here and read Dhruva Charita and Prahalad Charita for me. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu used to hear Dhruva Charita, Prahalad Charita on a daily basis. Why would he hear Dhruva Charita on a daily basis? What is the message of Dhruva Maharaj? In the context of Trinadapi Sunichena, what is the message? Tolerance. Because Dhruva Maharaj had this extraordinary ability at the age of 5. Was he disturbed by his age? That's an identity, by the way. Have you heard your children say, I'm only 5? I'm still a kid. When we tell them, when are you going to grow up? I'm still a kid. We say that, right? As parents, we make the statement saying, grow up. And they say, I'm still a kid. He did not. He was not deterred by the fact that he was only 5 years old. It did not confuse him saying, I'm a kid, I'm 5 years old. It did not, dominate his thoughts. He was not concerned that he was a king's child. A prince is supposed to have a certain identity. They are supposed to be treated in a certain way. Was he concerned? He wasn't. Was he concerned? And did he make 100 arrangements before going to the forest? How many of you have read the Srimad Bhagavatam Dhruva Charita? Did he make 100 arrangements before going into the forest? Did he take a palanquin? Did he take a whole body of soldiers? He made no arrangement. He was 5 years old. He took his blessings, the blessings of his mother, both mothers, and he just went out into the forest without even allowing them to disturb him in any manner. He left at the age of 5 to the forest, and he sat under a tree, and he had no protection whatsoever from wild animals, and he was only 5. Because his sincere quest was to find out who is Krishna, I want to meet him, because his mother told him, if you go and meet Krishna, then he is the one who is supposed to be able to give you the boon so that you can come back in my womb as my son and you could sit on your father's lap. This is a stepmother. She was actually telling him, go die. When someone tells, go, you can come back into my womb, what does it mean? You die. She was envious. But he took the message. He took the message and said, this is very important. He took the message. He consulted his mother. His mother was an extraordinary person. Actually, Srila Prabhupada writes in a very humble mood in one of the purports in Dhruva Charita. It is said that because of the extraordinary action of Dhruva Maharaj, both mothers, the stepmother who was very envious, who instructed him to go to the forest, as well as the mother, his own biological mother, who encouraged him to follow the stepmother's instruction to go to the forest, sit down and do your tapasya and chant your mantras. Both of them were delivered. And they were delivered, and Srila Prabhupada writes, right? He writes very clearly that it is my prayer and my hope that one of my disciples, at least one of them, would be able to qualify so that I can go back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada writes this. Okay? So, now what we need to understand is that this is exactly the mood of Dhruva Maharaj, where he went, he sat in the forest, he was so determined. When he became so determined, Krishna sent a preceptor. Spiritual life is very organic. We don't need to arrange for the spiritual master to find us. We just have to surrender eternally, keep following Prabhupada's instructions. The spiritual master will automatically manifest. We will become attracted to a specific entity because Krishna is going to make that arrangement. Similarly, when Dhruva Maharaj is very sincere, Sri Narad Muni appeared. He is a spiritual master of all spiritual masters, the extraordinary spiritual master, the extraordinary Vaishnava. He comes and he initiates him in the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. He initiates him and he makes him chant, and then he continues chanting, he continues doing the chanting. Now, what is the specific element or mental conditioning which is required for Dhruva Maharaj to do this? What did you understand in terms of, how did we understand? What did he, no, not dedication. What else? Think about it before think about it for a moment on what is the mindset which is required. Think about it. What is it which is required for someone?
Surrender.
Determination, yes. Surrender, yes. What is the mindset? It may all see, I'm not going to deny that the statements that you make and the words you're telling me in terms of what he had, they're all there. It's a fact. The fundamental mindset which Dhruva Maharaj had was he had the ability to accept the environment. If you do not have the ability to accept the environment that you are in, you will not be able to focus internally. So he accepted the forest. He accepted the challenges. He accepted being alone. He accepted the challenges to eating, sleeping, and defending. Would you all agree that he accepted it? If he did not accept it, he would not be able to stay there. As a 5-year-old, he did not allow the environment to overwhelm him. Isn't that our challenge? Aren't we being overwhelmed by our environment? That is the message of Trinadapi Sunichena. Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarori Vasahishnuna, Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari means you accept the environment as Krishna's arrangement. That's your first duty. Dhruva Maharaj, as a 5-year-old, had the ability to accept the environment. He accepted it, saying that this is Krishna's gift. Only if you accept it and accept the environment for whatever it was, will you have the courage to act upon it. Otherwise, we would return back. Is that agreed? So what is the definition of Trinadapi Sunichena as looked at here in Dhruva Charita? He was able to accept the environment. He was also courageous enough to act upon it despite the environment. The moment he accepted the environment as Krishna's gift, it became Krishna's gift. You see, when you accept something as Krishna's gift, it will become Krishna's gift. You buy an apple for $1 and you bring it before Krishna, it is just matter. It is just material. But you place it before Krishna, matter becomes spirit. You accept your environment as Krishna's environment, as what Krishna has given you, it will become a gift. If you accept the environment as Krishna's arrangement and then start looking at it seriously with that perspective, with faith, you will be able to act upon it. It is because we don't have the ability to accept the environment that we are constantly challenged. I was giving you a 5-year-old who was so challenged that he was able to accept the environment. He was so determined. Dhruva means determined. He was so determined as a 5-year-old that he accepted the environment. The night in the forest is very lonely. There are wild animals. You can hear noises. It's pitch black. As a 5-year-old, he was a Kshatriya, yes, but he's a 5-year-old. He was not intimidated. He accepted it. The moment he started accepting the environment as Krishna's arrangement for his own progress, for his benefit, he started making progress. Only then can you sit and chant. If he was constantly focused on the noises which were in the forest, constantly focused on the fact that he's not getting sumptuous food, constantly focused on the fact that he's lying down under a tree and he is under danger, how much chanting would he have accomplished? How much chanting would we accomplish if we constantly focus on the problems we have? The problems are there, but they are arranged by Krishna. Accept it. They are arranged by our karmic reactions, but accept it as Krishna's arrangement. And that will become Krishna's arrangement. you will use that energy for you to be able to move forward. Accept it, because you will be seeing miracles happen if you accept it. It's very important for us to understand this. This is Dhruva Charita example by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's precept, where he wrote Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasaishnuna Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. It was based on Dhruva Charita. Dhruva Charita. Same message Krishna is giving as Manmana Bandhbhakto Madhyajivam Namaskuru. What was Arjuna's challenge on the battlefield? He had to accept the fact that the battlefield was Krishna's arrangement. If he was going to be resistant, he could not move forward. He had to accept it. This is my arrangement. Krishna's arrangement. Okay, then I can move forward. You see? Does that make sense? Okay, very good. Now, let us look at why did Mahaprabhu look at Prahalad Charita? Why was he spending so much time on Prahalad Charita? Prahalad Charita has a similar import. Sahishnuna. Srinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna. Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. Prahalad Maharaj, similar, 5-year-old. Same kind of challenges, to the point where he had an abusive father. Prahalad Maharaj had an abusive father who was wanting to kill him. You know, can you even understand what kind of psychological damage the child will have if he even comes to know that the father wants to kill him? Can you even visualize this? You don't need to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You don't even need to go into it. But then understand the amount of psychological damage that the child will have if they know that the parent who is supposed to protect is wanting to kill. This was Prahalad Maharaj, but he accepted the environment. He kept accepting the environment. They gave a bowl of poison. What did he do? Kheer. He said, this is Krishna's gift. He accepted it. It did become Krishna's gift. The moment they gave him, a garland, which was actually poisonous, venomous snakes, it became a garland. You see? When they threw him from a mountain, he was thinking this Krishna's arrangement. He fell on a bed of, Krishna caught him. He practically fell under very comfortable circumstances. The point which we are trying to make here, in Dhruva Charita, he accepted the environment. He acted upon it as a Kshatriya would. In Prahalad Charita, he takes it to a completely different level based on his faith. In Prahalad Charita, Sri Prahalad Maharaj was accepting to the point where his internal power and his faith and his acceptance was so powerful that the external environment was changing. Do we understand how powerful this is? When you start accepting that this is the Lord's arrangement, this is for my benefit, Krishna loves me. There's no one who loves me more than Krishna does. When you start accepting things in that level, it will become Krishna's arrangement. It will become Krishna's arrangement. This is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. Having the ability to accept our environment as Krishna's arrangement and having the courage to act upon it. It does not mean inaction. Neither Prahalad nor Dhruva are known for inaction. They were not known for inaction. They were not inept. They were not inert. They were not sitting down doing nothing. They were known for extraordinary action. They were known for extraordinary action. Does this make sense in terms of why Mahaprabhu used to become so absorbed in these two kathas? Because these two kathas have the fundamentals of Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasahishnuna Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. By becoming absorbed and understanding and accepting the environment, you will accept it as Krishna's gift. It will become Krishna's gift. If you start looking at it as your misfortune, you will experience whatever has to be experienced as misfortune. If you start looking at it as Krishna's gift, saying that I needed this because at any given time, Krishna will give me whatever is needed for me to graduate to the next level. If that understanding is there of Krishna's relationship and love for us, then that particular arrangement which is being made would indeed become the next level of graduation point. You see, understand that life is about being able to accept it. I'm not trying to motivate you. I'm not giving you a positive spin. I'm quoting scripture. And there are many, many, many souls who are successful who have accepted it. Without this mental acceptance of understanding this environment has been designed for my benefit, you cannot move forward. We would become overwhelmed We would become very overwhelmed with what the environment has to throw on us. This environment is designed to bewilder us. If we do not go in the path which Mahaprabhu suggested, where we accept it, and then we develop the courage to act upon it effectively, then we would really be confounded, because the environment is very complex. And it is getting more and more complex. It is getting more and more complex. As each day passes, it's getting more and more complex. So this is Trinada Pisunichena Tarori Vasaishnu Amani Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. By accepting the environment, then we will have the ability to act upon it, the courage to act upon it. Then we will be able to move forward. Does it make sense? So this is the fundamental thrust which was given by Mahaprabhu on that particular verse. He offered us 8 verses. He could have offered us an entire ocean of literature if he wanted to. He is the source of all literature. He is the source of all knowledge. But he offered us 8 verses which were very critical. And this is the process of becoming Krishna conscious. If one wants to become Krishna conscious, one has to adopt a culture of Trinada Pisunichena Tarori Vasaishnu Amani Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. If we don't have the ability to accept our environment as Krishna's gift, then we would constantly be desiring changes. Aren't we constantly desiring changes? Right? We are constantly desiring changes. We are somehow thinking that something should happen for me to be able to do something for Krishna. For me to be able to wake up and chant, I got to have this. For me to be able to do this, I got to have that. For me to be able to do this, I have that. Now you have these 2 5-year-olds giving us precept and saying that they were able to go above and beyond the environment. They did not take in the environment. Instead, they acted on the environment with power. The power of love and the power of devotion and faith. Srila Prahlad Maharaj's faith was so powerful, the environment used to change. Why is it? And what were his problems, by the way? He was 5 years old. He was not a big personality in terms of, many, many years of realized knowledge, in terms of, having experiences. He was 5 years old. He was born in a family of demons. So he had no qualification by birth. He was born in a family of demons. He was 5 years old. He was surrounded by demons. No Sangha. This is 100% Asat Sangha. He had to enforce and he had to enthuse those guys. They were influencing him. He was influencing them. He was only 5 years old. You see, a child is known for getting influence. They can absorb like a sponge, right? But here was Prahlad Maharaj. He knew that these are people who are going to give me nonsense. So he was influencing them. So look at the challenge that he had. And then he had an abusive parent. He had an abusive father. And then on top of that, he had to overcome all of these challenges. And when he did all of that, the more and more he manifested his faith, Krishna finally appears as Lord Narasimhadev. Can you understand the intensity which he went through it as a 5-year-old? What is the quality of faith one needs to have? People will have a mental breakdown even if they are mature. Perhaps that's an issue. Perhaps maturity is an issue. It is said that being simple as a child is phenomenal. Perhaps this thinking process, when it gets too complicated, becomes too complicated. Where we start thinking that, this has to change, that has to change, this has to change. That. What if none of that can change? Wouldn't it be better to simply accept that this is the arrangement of the Lord? And then to start acting using this arrangement and to use the energy that's required there to launch ourselves. Does it make sense to everybody? I'm not saying that we have to accept nonsense. I'm not saying that we have to accept an abusive environment. Don't get this wrong. I'm saying for you to find out how to get out of a situation, first accept it that this is Krishna's environment. This is what Krishna has given us. Then intelligence would automatically come to us because Krishna is in the heart. It is not the other way around, where we question his plans. We constantly tell him that I'm chanting 16 rounds. I come to your temple. I worship your deity form. I do this and I do that. Krishna, you don't know your job. You're giving me so much trouble. Do your job, Krishna. Come on. Right? That attitude comes. Sometimes you blame him, saying you don't know your job. It's the opposite. He is looking down upon us very patiently and he's saying, I've done it. I've done it. I've done my job. This is exactly what you need. I've done it. Move forward. I've done it. You know, the intensity that you require, you need. You see? Don't we require intensity for you to function? You see, today I was reading something very interesting. You know, the iPad nowadays, it brings up the Wall Street Journal, brings up New York Times. They have created Apple News. And I was just reading this article. Sometimes when you do the screen, the news just comes and I just read it whenever that happens. And I was just reading this article about a complaint that was written about a New York school teacher. She was a first grade teacher. She's still a first grade teacher in a New York school. And they posted, you know, these days cell phones are there. Everybody has a camera. So she was surreptitiously, she was recorded chastising a first grade student. She was not being physically abusive. She was chastising the first grade student, where she said, do this. She gave her assignment. So the student picks up the paper and then does something completely opposite of what was expected. You know, the student is not paying attention. So she picks up the paper which was written, tears it into 2 bits right in front of everybody in the classroom, throws it down, saying, I'm disappointed, I'm overwhelmed, go sit in the, you know, calm down chair. They have a calm down chair in the classroom. She says, go sit in the calm down chair. It was all recorded. And then she chastises the student and then calls another student to do the same problem to set an example. And she says, I'm very disappointed with this behavior of yours, that when something is being written down, if you cannot do what is being written down, then I'm very disappointed. So she's chastising. Someone recorded this, and this has become a big issue. And then they you know, the school system was pulled in, and then there were all kinds of calls. And I was just reflecting on it. You know, I was just going back to how we grew up. You see? Yeah. How did we grow up? You know, I remember getting beaten for my brother. You know, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but I'm just saying that that is how we grew up, in the sense that it was not so much, you know, we want our children to learn, we want our children to be shaped. What is wrong with the teacher being able to chastise the student so that the student could become right? Because these days, it doesn't matter if you're a 7 or 8 year old, it's very challenging, you know, the young children. Their attention span has become so small because of gadgets and so on, that they don't have the ability to do anything. So what's wrong with chastisement? You know, I was in favor of behavior. I saw what she did. It was a bit strict, yes, but it was probably required because it was beneficial for the child. She was not really, you know, getting on the act there. The point which I'm trying to make here is, these days, there is so much resistance to everything. There are so many complaints about practically everything. Look at the fact, small things they're capturing by, what do you call it? The iPhones and whatever it is, and then it comes on the web, it's on YouTube, and then they use the word viral, it has become viral, you know, the video, 1 million hits of someone chastising a child, and that's important for everybody else to know, spend time debate. And I read that article for just half a minute, and I found the article would take me 10 minutes to finish. It just went on and on and on, and I said, oh my goodness, you know, this is a big deal for a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old to be, you know, treated. And then people are judging the school. And then the school principal said that this is not the way we do it. And the teacher said I was emotional, I behaved. There's so much nonsense going on in simply being able to perform your day-to-day tasks because people are so distracted. The point which I'm trying to make here is that we have become very spoiled as a society, right? We have become very spoiled. We are not able to accept the environment. We are not able to act upon it effectively. Everything needs to be arranged. Everything has to be comfortable. You know, our parents did not have any kind of luxury that we had. They struggled, right, to make us what we are. I remember paying 1 rupee per year for my schooling in India, Kendriya Vidyalaya. It was 1 rupee per year. I remember, you know. I know they didn't do a good job, but but the point which I'm trying to make is, you know, what I'm trying to say is that there are so many things that have changed today, that we make a big fuss about so many things, where we need to learn to accept our environment. Accept your environment as Krishna's arrangement. Then we will have the ability to be able to move forward. If you look at the scripture, progress has been made when this has been done. There's been a mental culture of acceptance, and then you act upon it. And then Krishna gives the intelligence of how to get out of it. Krishna is giving intelligence of how to get out of it if you accept it. Okay? So today's session, I just wanted to share, again to summarize, the main precept of Mahaprabhu is the Sikshashtakam prayers of 8 verses. If you go to my website, sandini.com, I have spoken extensively on all the 8 verses. We are given 8 sessions, in I think more than that. I am requesting you, if you want to listen, you go there and you listen in advance, but in greater detail. Now, in Sikshashtakam, there is one verse which is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarori Vasaishnuna Amani Manadena Kirtane Sadahari. That is the specific verse which Mahaprabhu has given us to remove obstacles on the path of pure chanting. That verse practically translates to accept your environment. Accept your environment. Work towards the goal of becoming Krishna conscious, which is to understand who we are in the spiritual sky. What is the meaning of Trinadapi Sunichena, the first one? I gave you the example of the train journey. You accept the environment and focus on the destination. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to become? On a daily basis, acculturate yourself. This is the main message of that particular verse. Accept the environment and then act upon it with courage. This is exactly the message which is being given by Mahaprabhu. How do you accept the environment? Accept the environment as Krishna's arrangement. The moment you accept things as Krishna's arrangement, even if it is your own karmic reaction, it will become Krishna's arrangement. So accept it. Then we gave the example of Prahalad Charita, Dhruva Charita. We shared the examples of how both of them developed the mental culture of being able to accept the environment, and then they acted upon it. Otherwise, how would they do japa? How would they realize the Lord? The Lord appears. Krishna does not appear unless you qualify yourself. How did they reach that stage? They were able to do so. Okay? So we'll end here and we'll see if you have any questions. If anybody online has any questions, you have to click on the Q&A tab and then you have to just write your questions. Any questions here that we can? Yes, Mataji, I'll take Mataji first. Go ahead. Okay, that's all right. I'll take one and then I'll see if you have said 2 and 3. Go ahead.
We are all connected.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing when you said the person who is traveling in the train, you shouldn't get disturbed with the. If somebody has a phobia of cleanliness, they get disturbed. So that is the one question, how to avoid that. And then another one is Prahlad Maharaj was able to be so surrendered because his foundation was so strong when he was born. So the 2 things, and then one more thing. When you're doing prayer, if your desires are not there, you are desiring something and you are doing prayers, what happens?
Okay, you mean so let me take one at a time. So the first question is, if there are, for example, if there are challenges in the environment and you have a greater level of sensitivity to the challenges, then how do you manage that? The point we are trying to make is accept it first. I'm talking about developing a mental culture of accepting. I'm not saying you do not go and see how you can resolve it. So if the environment is not clean and you have a greater level of sensitivity to the environment where you don't want to sit in a place which is not clean and so on, then first you accept it, that this is the arrangement which Krishna has made. Accept it internally. Then Krishna will provide intelligence within our heart for us to be able to do what is required to improve upon it. First, there has to be acceptance. Then there would be a culture of intelligence which will come from within because Krishna is in the heart for you to be able to act upon it. If you do not accept it, then you are on your own because you're going to be dealing with your intelligence, your capacity, your ability, your resources. But if you start accepting that the environment is Krishna's arrangement and this is exactly how he wants me to be, I'm going to accept it. I will try my very best to do what I'm supposed to do. But I will depend and leave the results to Krishna. If that is the stage, then Krishna will make arrangements for us by giving us intelligence, by giving us resources, giving us the help we need. The help we need comes to your second question. Prahlad Maharaj was such a potent and extraordinary personality because he was instructed by Sri Narad Muni himself. What makes us think that we are any less qualified in terms of help? There is so much help which is being given to us by Krishna. Prabhupada, his servants, there are so many Vaishnavas, his scriptures, deity form, seva, association of devotees. Why do we believe that we are in any way disadvantaged? We are not. In fact, we have some of the greatest advantages we can even hope for because of Prabhupada's mercy, because of Mahaprabhu's mercy. Prahlad Maharaj was surrounded by demons. You are not surrounded by demons. Prahlad Maharaj was 5 years old. You are not 5 years old. Whatever, you know. The point which I'm trying to make here is that I don't think we can make a comparison of our challenges versus his and thinking that less arrangements have been made. In fact, there have been quite extensive arrangements that have been made for us, as much as Krishna arranged for him. Krishna doesn't really, you know, what do you call it? He doesn't play any partial games. He looks at what is required, he's provided. And personally, we all should acknowledge, if that is not being done, then that's an issue as well. Accept this environment of what is being provided and the seva and all the opportunities as Krishna's arrangement. This is his arrangement. Accept it first, and then look to see how to resolve the issues within this, the situation. We are not saying neglect. We are not saying ignore. We are saying accept first, so that the mind doesn't stop constantly interfering, saying, unless you change all of this, I will not do what I'm supposed to do. The mind will tell you, unless you change this, unless you go there, unless you do this, I can't do this. No. You accept it first, start doing what is required, and then Krishna will step in and give us intelligence to move forward. Understand the distinction. Right? What was your third question?
Mantra, what you said, we chant, our desires are not implied with mantra. So, what happens when?
That is why with my first session, I said, write down a large plan. Because Krishna is not going to be picking and choosing, saying, oh, you have this bad desire, you have this good desire, I'm going to fulfill this. He is going to be looking at you, and he is going to be looking at an aggregate of all your desires and saying, if broadly you want to be able to move forward, then he is ready to step in. So he's going to be looking at an aggregate, not just one desire, and so on and so forth. So he's looking at our whole lifestyle as a whole, saying, okay, for a large part, they are proceeding towards me. I should assist them. So we should chant prayers and beg for mercy, understanding that that is there. But we should also be very specific in writing down future plans. If you don't write down future plans, then what would happen is that we would get stimulated by the environment, and the environment will create plans for us. And those plans may not be what Krishna would help, it will not help our Krishna consciousness. Okay? So, Vikas Prabhu, please come. One moment. Sorry. Because
Prabhuji, as you said, we have to accept it. So, what happens, if you accept the environment and things still don't change? So, at what point, it's like, keep trying, and what point totally give up and say, okay, Krishna, now you manage, and I'm done.
we always accept it fully. We accept it. And then we tolerate. We keep tolerating, and we try our very best to make improvements. We try our very best to make improvements. If there is an opportunity for you to move from one environment to the other, after making the best arrangement and thinking very clearly, not so much in terms of our convenience, but thinking whether this particular change is going to be conducive for my Krishna consciousness. Giving due thought to that when you make a change, and if that change is being approved by Krishna, we can transition into that change. You see? I'm not saying we become inert. I'm saying first accept the environment so that the mental culture of acceptance comes in so that we are able to chant. If we do not accept, every day would be a challenge. We will wake up and go to bed thinking that something has to change for me to move forward. And it may not, as you rightly said. It may not. It may not change because that could exactly be what we need and it may not change. So what do? You accept first. You accept first and make your attempt after that and allow Krishna to come in and make the changes that are required. Does it make sense? You try as much as you can, but evaluate everything by understanding that whether you are able to associate with devotees, whether you're able to chant, whether you're able to read, whether you're able to, do all your seva properly. That is how you evaluate an opportunity. We do not get stimulated by the environment and start acting on it.
So in that case, if like accepting by heart and doing all the effort, if you think that materially you are losing a lot of things, it could be opulence, it could be your position, it could be your contacts, or it could be relations. So how do we see those things? Because sometimes when we keep trying and leave everything on Krishna, sometimes it will.
I want to just clarify first. Okay. First, set the goal. Okay. We are not hippies. Peace is not an objective in Krishna consciousness. It's not. We need peace so that when we are peaceful, we are able to chant. But peace itself is not the goal of Krishna consciousness. The goal of Krishna consciousness is Krishna consciousness, where we want to know who we are, we want to know who is Krishna, and we want to know the specific relationship, and we want to be able to act upon it. So that goal has to be centered first. Then start looking at where the challenges are to that goal. If you start resolving the challenges of life by having something else in the center, other than the goal of wanting to come to complete Krishna consciousness, the problems will not be solved. It would be half-baked. The solution will not be perfect. We need to go into it further. We will talk perhaps offline. Does it make sense about what? Because the goal, if you're trying to make $1 million, and then if you're taking my instruction and saying accept the less than 5,000 or less than 2,000 you have in your bank account, and how will I go anywhere? I may never be able to make $1 million. Yeah, true. But who is talking about that $1 million anyways? I am talking about keeping Krishna in the center, developing a relationship with him, understanding who we are in relationship, being able to chant in that relationship. I'm talking about that. And then you start looking at what obstacles do I have in relationship to that. And then you start resolving those obstacles, you will find that everything else also gets resolved. I think your question had more to do with general issues of how to accept and resolve. Am I right? Yeah. Did I answer your question in terms of distinction? We can discuss further. Sure. So, Mataji, and then we'll come. Yeah.
You gave the example of Arjuna on the battlefield, but when you read the first chapter, then Arjuna had these two options to fight and also not to fight, right? Like which one to accept. Similarly, we will also have sometimes options which one to accept as Krishna's arrangement, right? So what should we do?
Okay, so the question is, what if we have multiple options, we are unable to decide which is actually better? So what we do is we always evaluate to the best of our ability as to which option would really suit us. For this, we can even consult Vaishnavas who are senior to us, who are able to perhaps take a second opinion, third opinion from those who are guiding us. This would allow us to have a certain idea that, okay, this is what the multiple options are, but then this is exactly how I could proceed. So taking shelter of the Vaishnavas who are surrounding us is also a means of trying to take Krishna's help. And after all of this, we take action and then we leave the results to Krishna. Does it make sense? Yeah, there's a process. This is the process. Raj Prabhu?
You mentioned in the last one, we need to put our we need to put objectives and everything on paper.
Right.
So that you have a clarity that it doesn't conflict.
Right.
In the last class you mentioned prayers.
Right.
You said the potency of prayers are such that it could come in as time, you could even change the time.
Right.
So does it conflict with the very goals that we put it with?
So, okay, so the question is, I'm writing down a bunch of goals for the future, and I'm chanting the prayers to Lord Narasimhadev, where he can even influence time. So, what is the...
You mentioned that he can even do things not according to our comfort, and he can change time.
Correct.
It could be. So, does it conflict with the very goals that we put in?
There would be no conflict. The way we do it is that we keep writing what we can, we keep putting down a plan for the future, but always keeping in mind that we act as if it depends on us, but you leave the results to Krishna. So the Krishna can come and he can just laugh at our plans and say, ridiculous, you know. He can just chuck our plans to the side and say, okay, ridiculous, take this. This is what I think is good for you. He could do that. It's up to him. My spiritual master used to say, the best way to make Krishna laugh is to just tell him our plans. You know, Krishna, I have this plan, that plan. Just make him laugh, right? So he will think of it as a joke. So the best way to do it is to keep him in mind, write down, and then be able to move forward on that part.
But how do we disassociate ourselves if we are going far from our plans? What we wrote down. Whatever we wrote down, if we are going far away from our plans, how do we reconcile that?
You manage projects, right? Yeah, so I don't have to answer you. Manage the project, right? You know what to do. So let me take a few online questions. Okay, I'm going to take one at a time. So Prahlad Maharaj is having previous birth, accumulated bhakti. I don't have. So how to achieve Prahlad Maharaj's state of mind? We don't, the facility which Prahlad Maharaj had and the ability of him being able to manifest a situation such as what we saw is very unusual. So the first thing that we would want to understand is that how many of us are born in a demoniac family? How many of us are 5 years old? How many of us have an abusive father who wants to constantly kill us? How many of us are surrounded by demons? Practically none. How many of us have had absolutely no association whatsoever, but yet we somehow or the other want to desire Krishna consciousness, where wonderful arrangements are being made? So the point which I'm trying to make is there is a certain sense of proportion. The mercy that we receive will always be disproportionate to our qualification. Prahlad Maharaj had a lot of bhakti, but the mercy that he received was far, far greater than the bhakti that he carried. Krishna manifested himself as Narasimhadev. Similarly, the mercy that we receive will be far, far disproportionate to the amount of qualification that we carry. Our 16 rounds of chanting, our seva, none of this is capable of giving us Krishna consciousness on its own merit. We are completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So we do our part very sincerely following Prabhupada's orders, and then we leave the results to Krishna. So in that sense, we are not so dependent on our own propensity and our own potency. We are dependent on mercy. We are Kripa Siddhas. So we don't have to really worry about having the level of bhakti which Prahlad Maharaj has, but to become inspired by his actions, even though he was so constrained. So that is the message. I hope that answers your question. There's one more question. My question is, should we pray for the pure name or for the love of Godhead? The pure name, Shuddhanam, is chanted when there is love of Godhead. What is the pure name? The pure name, Shuddhanam, is when we have the ability to call Krishna's name with the same or equivalent level of love which Mother Yashoda would call. Shuddhanam is the ability to call upon Krishna's name just as one of his cowherd boy friends would call. Shuddhanam is the ability to call upon Krishna's name just as one of his, the gopi maidservants would call. So Shuddhanam, the pure name, is the chanting of Krishna's names after attaining complete knowledge of who we are in relationship to Krishna. That is Shuddhanam. How will they call? Do you think Mother Yashoda would look at the bead bag in the morning as a burden? Will she wake up and say, oh, the bead bag is a burden, calling Krishna's name is a burden? It's a burden. No. It will be imbued and it will be filled with extraordinary level of love. So love of Godhead, Prema Bhakti, is what allows us to chant Shuddhanam. Okay? Shuddhanam is Shuddha Bhakti. It's pure love. That's what it is. There's no difference. And the answer is that. Any other question? Yes.
Last time you said something that I don't even know if people paid your attention. But that thing set me in the state of mind that I started to do everything like better. Look at waking up better. I was dragging to wake up early, but now you said that Srila Prabhupada said that many of his disciples would take birth in higher planets, and they will have to
Come back.
go to the cycle again.
Yes.
That was scary. That is
I'm glad I scared you.
perfect to
Yeah, I'm very happy I scared you. I put a scare in you.
I'm happy to be scared.
Yes. Yeah, it's a fact because it is said that Srila Prabhupada used to stand before the deities every day. And then he used to look upon the deities, and then the devotees those days, some of them, there was no distance between them and Prabhupada. Like culturally, there was no distance. They did not know how to understand the position of the spiritual master because they were young and they're very untrained at those days. So anyway, he used to stand before the deities and he used to offer worship. And the disciple used to ask him, what were you praying for? Every day. We wouldn't do that. But then the point is, Srila Prabhupada used to reply. He used to say, I'm praying that I don't fall down. He used to reply. I'm sure he was not, making fun, or he was giving a light statement because he was very sincere. He was very profound. He used to say, I was praying that I don't fall down. He used to pray. So the point we are trying to make here is there is a certain lack of knowledge. There's a certain lack of perception, understanding of what is our goal and what we have been given, of how precious it is. And because most of us do not know how precious the gift is, we have a tendency to be, relaxed. That is one. Second, we are also not clear on what happens at the time of death. There are no guarantees. Yes, ultimately arrangements will be made by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada for us to be able to continue our chanting. Ultimately, yes. But what if that had to happen several lifetimes after this? Do I have the patience to go through 1 trillion lifetimes? What if we become Lord Brahma? And we have to be, in that position for, trillions of years. And then you have to come back again to earth to take birth. And then again, somehow or the other, we have to have an arrangement where it's conducive to meet devotees. And then we have to have the ability to read books and so on and so forth, have to have a body which is capable of, a little bit of austerity and have some taste for bhakti. What is the guarantee? Because what we are trying to say is that our process is very potent. It's an extraordinarily potent process. As a consequence, the process of extricating and weeding is also very potent. So the weeds are also being removed. By weeds, I mean people who are dysfunctional, who have not taken it seriously. they would be removed automatically. Because when you are in a powerful process, you have to have both. Mercy has to be freely flowing, but your controls should also be there, where people who are not functioning the way they're supposed to would also be removed. Because you can't really expect that the level of bhava, which is emotions that are felt when someone is in love with Krishna, Krishna becomes the property of the devotee. Does it make sense? Krishna becomes the property of the devotee, where Krishna would start doing things because his heart and the devotee's heart are together, like we notice in Vrindavan. So why would Krishna want to become so easily available? It is not cheap. So we should not be surprised if there's beating. And there would be testing, there would be constant testing, there would be constant testing before we can come before Krishna. Why would we expect that it should be a cakewalk? Right? Does it even make any sense? There's no iota of sense. How many of you have met Barack Obama? Have you? You haven't. Neither have I. Right? What makes us think we can meet Krishna so easily? Right? I'm saying this because 2016 is the presidential year. He's going to change. After this, he's going to be forgotten. He'll make millions of bucks on his speaking tours. That's a different story, like Bill Clinton does. But the point is, he's a good speaker too. He can speak. So he will make money, but after that, he's going to be forgotten, right? Overall, there have been so many presidents and prime ministers. It is so difficult even to meet those people who assumedly, purportedly have some power on this planet. It's a very insignificant planet. It is. It's a very insignificant planet. Our lifespan is insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The devas take aggregate decisions for our future. They don't really look at individuals. They take aggregate decisions. They say, like you all look at, for example, software programmers, if there are too many bugs, start afresh. So they also take decisions like that. There are too many bugs in the program, there's too much mode of ignorance, scuttle the whole project, go back to the drawing board, start all over again, then pralaya starts. This is a very insignificant planet. I was in Mayapur once, and then there was this devotee who was giving a class. He gave an interesting class. There was this devotee from South America. And that time, it was just, I think, 2004 was a tsunami. And then there were a lot of, tsunamis were occurring. And then he was just giving an example, saying, I took half a bucket of water, and I poured it in front of my veranda to clean the veranda in my apartment. And perhaps there were ants and other germs which were sitting there, which just got flown away. And for them, this would have been a tsunami. This would have been a tsunami. So in the grand scheme of things, we are like that. So the devas don't look at us as individuals. For them, we are a project. They look at us, they look at the consciousness which is prevalent, they see whether they can really process souls. It's like a school. Can you graduate from one classroom to the other? If it doesn't work, they say, let's start again. Okay, the whole process starts again. So they take decisions at a level where it is somewhat impersonal. But for devotees, it's very personal. Krishna has made all arrangements. So it's a bit dangerous. It is very dangerous. I always give the example of my spiritual master. My spiritual master was American, and he had graduated from Princeton. He was in a very good job. He was selected for the UN, some position. Srila Radhanath Swami, when he was speaking about my spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was saying that if he had not joined Krishna consciousness, he would have probably become the president of the United States. Because he was so powerful, and he was the advisor of many, many world leaders. So the reason I'm mentioning his name is, some souls are so powerful in their thought process that the moment he heard Prabhupada's voice, he resigned his job, he donated all his money to the temple, sold his house, sold everything, and then joined the movement full time. And he was 23. He was American. The point which I'm trying to make here is some souls have this extraordinary focus where The moment they get to know what they have to do, they have the ability to decide what's the objective of life. We don't. You see, we are so confused about what the objective of life is. I just reflect on it. And same can be said about Sukadev Goswami, for example. At the age of 16, he just walks away. Vyasadeva is bemoaning his son, saying, "Oh, he's walking away. I've not done anything. He's just walking away. That's it. I have nothing to do with this world." He's already self-realized. Then you find this in many, many souls in the Srimad Bhagavatam, very young, and then they just go to the forest because they've understood the purpose of life. They take a decision saying, "This is nonsense. Let me go. I want to do what is not sense." The point I'm trying to make here is that there are so many precepts and so many examples of decision making, very powerful decision making, which we see in the scriptures. And even in our own lives, about our spiritual masters and so on. So many of our spiritual masters are qualified, so highly qualified, but they give that up to join and to serve because they understood this is more important. Okay, let me just take one more question. Okay, in pure name, Hare Krishna Mahamantra or something else like Kana or Vanamali, etc. Harinam Chintamani talks about primary and secondary names. Kana is a name which you can say is a primary name, even though it is not Sanskrit, but it is being uttered out of love. Perhaps Vrajvasis. Vrajvasis even use bad words. That's a different story. So-called Vrajvasis. But then what I'm saying is that Kana is okay. Vanamali, it reminds us. So these are all primary names. So yes, but when we say Shuddhanam, the process that we want to follow is the one that has been given by Mahaprabhu. So when we want to chant Mahamantra, it becomes Shuddhanam when our Sambandha is 100% known and we are in love. So calling the name of the beloved is Shuddhanam. Okay, I'm going to stop here because I've gone over my time. If there are any more questions, please feel free to write to me. You can write to me. You can post on Facebook. I would prefer that so that everybody else can also see the reply. So thank you very much. Starting Monday, we'll be starting Monday and Thursday. We'll be going back to a Monday, Thursday Bhagavatam sessions. I'm sorry if I haven't done it the past 2 sessions. I was a bit overwhelmed with some work. But we'll start continuing Monday and Thursday. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.